Chinese satellite was recently seen beaming down green lasers over the islands. This video captured atop the Subaru telescope on Mauna Kea.
Let's start this again.
That was a very unusual sight captured on camera. Japanese and local astronomers say the Chinese satellite was recently seen beaming down green lasers over the islands. This video captured atop the Subaru telescope.
Subaru telescope,
operated by the National Astronomical
Look at that
Observatory
shit.
of Japan. Bryce Moore has the story.
Well.
The lasers flash for just a couple seconds. Initially thought to be from a NASA altimeter satellite, the Japanese put out a correction note on Monday saying NASA scientists found a most likely candidate as the ACDL instrument by the Chinese DACI.
Oh, very nice.
Satellite.
We got very nice satellite.
To a University of Hawaii astronomer
I will show you.
on
Look.
AEMS instruments.
It's a Chinese satellite that is measuring pollutants, among other things.
Yeah, pollutants.
Instruments on it.
Looking for them pollutants, all right.
They're also used for measuring stuff in the Earth's atmosphere.
What we got here? Piece of trash. Satellite trash. 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 My thing is off big time.
Both experts say this isn't explicitly a spy satellite. It is cataloged and known by governments around
Oh, it is a laser station. Oh, is this satellite? No, it's not a satellite. You've seen the satellites. You've seen them. You've seen the satellites. They exist. They have got them.
down off the coast of South Carolina, which brings the question: how much is the Chinese military seeing?
They can shut down any communication nodes if they want, if they believe that they think the public is getting too much.
They're mapping. That's geo mapping. They're mapping with that satellite. Look, we'll go and look. That's how they do it. Well, let's first listen to how they do it. Let's make this video correct. Satellites. Just ask it. You know what? I will just ask it. Very good.
How satellites burn the Earth from orbit.
That's not it, though. Wrong.
Can satellites burn the Earth?
That's the same answers.
How do directed energy weapons work from satellite?
These
They
are those
really didn't want to
weapons
answer that
don't
question.
exist.
Although we've heard that we've heard
These are some of our favorite.
we've heard it before. We just wanted other people to know. We're gonna go into some strange areas. You're gonna like it though.
They won't tell you from satellite. There was a guy that did a story on it, and he says that they use infrared for the frequency, which is lower. Obviously, it's not ultraviolet, but you could use that too because it's high energy. But it can't light anything that's blue on fire. Is the problem that they have. So they painted some things blue and they wouldn't catch on fire, and those blue things are still there. Of course, they're having a problem with the news, but they had the satellite, the Chinese satellite, over them when the fire started, and there are some weird footages where you're seeing just balls of fire appear. So that's not natural. What the fuck is this? Throw some railguns in there. No, we're not throwing railguns in there. No. We just want to look and see. Just have a little look-see.
The concept of using light as a weapon has intrigued weapon designers for centuries. The first such system hypothesized was the Archimedes heat ray. According to legend, he had used a series of mirrors to focus sunlight on ships of the Roman fleet as they invaded Syracuse, setting them on fire. During World War II, various stories of engine stopping rays had been reported, including Nazi supported studies into a directed X ray beam weapon. Researched by the German electrical engineering company Siemens Schuckert, the concept hoped to disable piston engines
Rome, you need to attack Syracuse at nighttime.
by ionizing their combustion chambers through a directed bombardment of X rays. Fast forward 2 decades, and
Wait,
it would
do
not
what?
be until
What'd they say?
1960 for the light weapon to reach the realm of feasibility when Theodore H. Maiman operated the first functioning laser at Hughes Research Laboratories in Malibu, California.
Is that right?
In civilian applications, lasers would soon grow in power. With the ability to focus kilowatts of energy onto a small point, their use in industrial welding and cutting expanded rapidly. Though their initial military use
I really
has
like
been
that.
more indirect, being used primarily for range finding, targeting, and ordnance guidance.
I think
The
it's
first
going to hit
use
that
of
target.
lasers to damage targets directly were laser blinding weapons. These were first used during the Falklands conflict and the 1980s war between Iran and Iraq.
Oh,
Because relatively low energy levels could permanently blind combatants, their use led to the Protocol on Laser Blinding Weapons in 1995. These protocols would eventually be adopted by 108 nations by 2018. Lower powered systems intended to temporarily blind or
that'll
disorient its
do it.
target, called dazzlers, are still in use today by both the military and law enforcement. Laser systems that directly
extreme.
use highly focused light as a ranged weapon to damage a target are part of a class of arms known as Directed Energy Weapons, or DEW. Despite huge funding into research efforts, both by the US government and several other nations, to date, no known laser directed energy weapon has ever been used against military hardware on the battlefield. Shortly after Maven's discovery, aggressive research immediately led to the gas dynamic CO2 laser in 1968, which accomplished continuous power levels of over 130 kilowatts. By 1980, megawatt beams were achieved by the Mid-Infrared Advanced Chemical Laser, or MIRCL, making it the most powerful continuous wave laser in the United States at the time. Its original goal was to be able to track and destroy anti-ship cruise missiles, though mixed results from testing did not lead to any functional weapon
What the
system.
fuck is that?
Creating a functional laser-directed energy weapon system is far more challenging than simply building a high-power laser. Such a system not only requires a powerful laser source, but also the necessary optics to focus the beam at the
It says, I
desired
see
distance,
you.
a method for target
Boom.
detection
I
and
shoot you
tracking,
now.
a mechanism for accurately and rapidly steering the beam onto the tracked target, and finally a real-time computer system capable of control and coordination.
Are you going to
with
fucking
weapons
blow that thing
systems.
up or what?
One of the most significant limitations of a laser-directed energy weapon is its restrictive targeting characteristics.
What does that mean?
By their very nature, they can only engage targets by line of sight. Atmospheric effects can also negatively affect their use, both for target tracking and beam propagation.
That's true.
Absorption, scattering, and turbulence have to be taken into account. Adverse conditions such as rain, fog, and smoke can outright make it impossible to even employ the laser at all. But even in ideal atmospheric conditions, as a
If you listen to the Tom Bearden stuff, we're going to go to it.
Tom Bearden weapons.
Listen to this shit. Are you going to talk to Tom Bearden? I don't want to, not Tom Bearden. I want Tom Bearden. Tom Bearden's the shit. Is that him? No. No, what the fuck is this about? They don't give me any Tom Bearden? Just type in Tom Bearden. It's Beardon. And these fucking jokers. You fucking jokers. It doesn't give it to you. What the fuck, dude? What are they doing? Wiping the fucking air? There he is.
Basically, for what we would call modern electromagnetic theory, we can start James Clerk Maxwell. That's
Now, hold on.
usually a starting point.
You really feeling to make a video making today? I want to take you on a journey. That's not the name. I didn't say decanter. I said disapater. Disapater is a demon from hell, a devil, and it looks just like this motherfucker here, disapater. It's not gonna. What's going on? Nothing wants to fucking participate in it. Disapater. Image. Let's see. There should be. Oh, come on now. Seriously? It's a single monster. This guy right here. Tom Bearden, bro. That's Tom right there. Tell me it ain't. Tell me it's not. That's not him. That's the guy right there. Let me get that screenshot so I can, do stuff with it. I got stuff to do with it. Edit that son of a bitch. And then we'll get right back to Thomas Bearden. We'll get right back. That's all I wanted. Thank you very much. Play my fucking video, please. The way he talks about this stuff is excellent. It's amazing. Because the way that the thing connects, whatever the fuck, it's a whole different system.
Put it together based on Faraday's work. Faraday was a great experimenter and did a great number of experiments which showed very nice things. And Faraday had some concepts of his own which he advanced, but he did not mathematize it. He didn't make math models of it. Maxwell, for example, even made a statement that when he first started studying that, he made a vow not to look at anybody else's work until he finished capturing Faraday's work mathematically. So he set out to deliberately mathematize what Faraday had discovered working on the bench. And his actual theory, which is in a paper published in 1865, was orally delivered in 1864. His actual theory is 20 equations and 20 unknowns, quaternion and quaternion-like equations. The quaternion differs. Understand, at this time there were no vectors. Vector and tensor analysis were not yet born. And so what we had is various kinds of algebras and things like that. But quaternions had been created by Hamilton.
I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about.
They were what we call a higher group symmetry. They captured lots of operations, intricate operations that today's theory does not capture at all. To give you an example, there's always a great dispute about Nikola Tesla's work. And most of the conventionally trained scientists assume that they know and understand everything Tesla did. They do not. One of the really fine electrodynamicists and electrical physicists we have in this country is a man named Terry Barrett. Barrett took a look at Tesla's actual patents, but he looked at them in quaternion algebra, the same kind of thing that Maxwell was originally using in his original theory. And surprisingly, there were many operations going on in these circuits that could be seen with quaternion electrodynamics, could not be seen with the best tensor analysis you could do. So Barrett published a paper on it to show what was actually going on in those circuits. He also saw some ways to improve what Tesla had been doing, and he filed and obtained 2 patents which are still used in communication industry and things like ultra-wideband radar. So it does work. But my point is that we started off with this better model, but it was much more complicated mathematics. Now, in those days, the fashion was to call what we today would call electrical engineer, call them electricians. And most of them were more like electricians than what we would consider an electrical engineer. And for example, people like Heaviside looking at that said, you know, these poor electricians, they'll never learn these silly quaternions. That's far too complicated. This has got to be made simpler. He wasn't the only one that took that view, but he was the major one that played a major role in cutting down those equations and making them much easier and much simpler, and therefore losing lots of operations you can do. But the quaternion has one peculiar thing. It takes a vector, what we today will call a vector component, when it has direction as well as magnitude, and it sticks on the component that doesn't have any direction, just has magnitude. And people like Heaviside, who was totally self-taught, never went to university at all, but brilliant man, brilliant. We're not knocking Heaviside at all. Heaviside said, that's mixing apples and oranges, so let's chop off that part that's not got a direction. And that's the way vectors were born. Heaviside and Hertz, and primarily an American also named Gibbs, basically taught our scientists vector analysis. They created vector algebra, vector analysis. And they did it in refining and condensing and chopping down, chopping up Maxwell's equations, Maxwell's original equations. They reduced it to a much smaller subset of the thing.
That Maxwell guy caught something in the part that we get cut out is a weird, the way that they've explained it, it's very difficult to get grasp, first off, but it makes sense once you, I don't know how to explain it. I won't be able to pull it off. There's no fucking way. It's like if you have something moving, you have a whole nother algebraic letter that goes for a value that follows the whole thing, kind of, for lack of any other way to say it. That's what I'm going to say. And that, I'll put my face on it. This isn't my area, but I'm going to try to explain it. So you have something, say it's moving 25 miles an hour, whatever number you put with it, and then have a zero going over that. The zero number stays around insulating somehow the math problem. I know, and it's moving, so it's, what are you doing? And when it gets to something it encounters, it couples and decouples with it at every stage. And those are the values they cut out that add all the other, like what he said. He's like, it allows you to do all kinds of other shit. It does. It allows you to do all kinds of other shit. But it's actually more complicated. And for what they wanted to do, is because they needed to turn these electricians into electrical engineers, as you heard him say, they created the vector analysis. Which I know science and some of the science shit from a distance, not with the nitty gritty hands on, but I follow it I'm a pretty good, I've got enough interest in it, in the broad area of it, to where I can at least hone it into that. I just really wanted to show you the lasers, because I was listening to what they were saying about the Hawaii fire again, and that's going to be lasers. We're going to find out. I don't know when. I don't know if ever in our lifetime, but that was that miracle. So that was that, what they just said, the second lasers. That was the one that is infrared. They shoot it from satellite, just like those lasers that were coming down. They were coming down from satellite too. Satellite probably got all kinds of shit. All kinds of shit on it, because if it's a weapon satellite, it doesn't just have to be a weapon satellite. It could be cameras on it, everything. Load it up. Load that bitch up. Load that bitch up. Load that bitch up.